What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 37 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lilienwall. I got producer Noah here with me, and we've got a dub pod for you this evening. Noah, how are you feeling?
Oh, man. It was a great night at Starfire. I saw just a top bins goal. I had top bins Buddha Brothers from a truck. I mean, I'm so excited for us to play LAFC at Starfire Stadium.
That's right. The Seattle Sounders have advanced to the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open Cup. 2-1 winners over Phoenix Rising FC at Starfire last night. Goals from Alex Roldan, a penalty kick, and a really, really nice game winner from an unlikely source, Kalani Kossa-Rienzi, first-round Super Draft pick this year. First time I had watched him play, I think, and he bammed probably one of the best goals I've seen all season from a Seattle Sounder. So we're going to dive into that game today, and that's going to be most of the episode. I think we got a couple quick news hits from around MLS at the very end. But we're going to lay down this dub pod and then do a little look ahead also to this Saturday's MLS match at St. Louis City SC. But before we do so, quick housekeeping at the top of the show, as usual. I'd like to thank all of our paid subs. You guys are the best. I'm going to read them out. I'm going to keep reading the whole list until we get so many that I can't do so anymore. Rhombus, Nate, Tyler, Owen, David, Christopher, Bill, Mike, Aaron, Derek, Sounder Naves, Dan Pavetto, Mike Standish, Ryan Shane, Eric, my nephews, CJ and Miles Marinakis, Andy Hill, Ian Mitchell, and Greg Hoker. Thank you guys. We love you guys. If you'd like to support the show, all you have to do is go to podcast.lobbingscorchers.com, click on the little heart. You can pledge $3, $5, $10, $1,000, $10,000, however much you want. Not obligatory, though. We just appreciate everyone who tunes in, but thank you so much to everyone who has and continues to support us. And also, if you haven't done so yet and you're listening to this, please subscribe to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. Growing by the day. I mean, I think we're up close to 70 subscribers, if not there. The little shorts and reels that Noah's been making and posting on there have actually kind of been popping, Noah, so good job.
Yeah, they're banging.
We don't have a lot of subs yet, but our viewership numbers are actually pretty good because of those. But we are trying to continue to grow our presence over on YouTube. So if you haven't yet, please drop a sub there.
We have 19. We have 19 supporters as well. For people paid subs, we got 19, right?
Which that's 19 more than I thought we were going to get when we started this podcast.
But why not? I like round numbers. Let's just get one more.
Yeah,
you know? Let's pump one more.
I know there's at least one person out there who hasn't subscribed to support Lobbing Scorchers yet. That's willing to and can be our 20th sub. I set the goal at 50, and then we've plateaued at 19. So
that's how it goes.
Let's get to 20. But in all seriousness, we do appreciate the support from everyone and the growing listenership that we've continued to experience over the last month or so. It's much appreciated, and it motivates us to keep putting out these shows. But let's talk about this game, Noah. Let's do the dub pod. It's only like our fifth dub pod of the season between so they've won three MLS games and 2 Open Cup games.
Yeah.
So it's our fifth dub pod of the season out of 13, 14 games, whatever it's been. So
but listen, undefeated Open Cup dub pods.
It's true. The pod is 2-0 in the U.S. Open Cup against 2 USL Championship sides. But these Open Cup games against the USL Championship sides, they're not easy games necessarily, as we've seen. And I thought this one was a little smoother sailing than the one against Louisville City. I think that's my first observation from this game, is that Louisville City is quite a bit better than Phoenix Rising.
Easily.
Louisville City, I mean, you can see it on the USL table. They're one of the best teams in the league. Phoenix Rising is a pretty mid-USL team this year. I thought it looked like it. You could really see the quality differential between these two teams in this game. It looked like an MLS team playing a USL team where which might sound obvious, but a lot of the times in these Open Cup games where the MLS team is rotating and it's a lot of their academy kids and backups, it evens out the quality a little bit. You've got a lot of inexperience out on the field, and in this case, Seattle had a lineup with a lot of academy kids and backups, and they still looked like they were the MLS team playing against the USL team. So but let's talk about our lineup reaction first, as we do at the start of our game analysis. Schmetz said it was going to be more of a first choice crew for this game. And so that was not exactly how I would describe this lineup. You had Christian Roldan out there and you had Nuhu out there, but other than that, it was a pretty rotated side. You had the band of three of Georgie, Dylan Tevez, and Paul Rothrock, with Moose up top, with Danny Leyva and Christian as your double pivot, with a back line of Kossa-Rienzi, John Bell, Stu Hawkins, and Nuhu, with Andy T in goal. So I think if the first talking point is just kind of, what do we think of how rotated a squad this still seemed to be for where they are in the tournament and where they're at with their season? And I mean, I'll say pretty much the same thing that I've been saying when talking about the Open Cup, which is I'm fine with lining it up like this. Schmetz alluded to it today, actually. I just saw the quote that the further you get into the tournament, the less you rotate. And he did say that he feels like now they're at the point where you're getting close enough to having an opportunity to play in a final where for the Sac Republic game, again, he made it sound like he was going to play more first choice 11 type guys, which is sort of how he made it sound for this game. And he didn't really adhere to that. But I do tend to think that as the reality of playing for a trophy becomes more and more clear, you probably will see them prioritize it in a way where you'll see more guys out there who you would probably see as first choice starters in an MLS game. I don't know if it's not going to probably be the full strength lineup, but you might see less academy kids. I don't know if you're going to see guys like Stu Hawkins and Snyder Burnell and stuff out there the deeper that they get into this tournament, like should they win the next game. But
to be fair, Stu Hawkins should be on the bench for this upcoming matchup. So I don't know. We might see him.
Yeah, well, so that's one thing we can talk about right off rip, because the trajectory of Stu Hawkins, I think, is a big storyline for the organization. He's the most touted central defender in the pipeline right now. So his development, there's quite a bit riding on it, and I haven't really gotten to see him play all that much. I haven't watched all that much Defiance since he started playing for them, but I do know about his pedigree and what the organization thinks of him. So it was that's kind of why I like a lineup like this, because it gives you a chance to see that in action in a competitive, high stakes elimination game, and you kind of get to see what a guy like Stu Hawkins is made of. I thought I was actually decently impressed with Stu Hawkins in this game. It seems like he has good composure, positioning, instincts. I thought there was at least a few plays where he made the right reads, was in the right spot. So I kind of, I want to see more of him before I formulate a total opinion on Stu Hawkins. But I thought, at least in this game, I can't really think of a foot that he put wrong, which that's what you want in a defender first and foremost. Being boring is a positive thing for a CB. You don't necessarily want to be entertaining as a CB. And I thought Stu Hawkins acquitted himself well in this game.
Yeah, I really liked what I saw with him. And like you said, you hit the nail on the head last week and the week before that by saying the biggest thing is that we didn't notice him. He fit in, he blended in. You don't hear anyone talking about him other than us, the pundits, but like you don't hear anyone on Twitter like, "Oh shit, Stu Hawkins again." Right. No, it's just he played, he held his own. They potentially could have kept a clean sheet if they didn't give up probably the world's dumbest penalty I've ever seen, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
We will get to that.
But yeah, I thought he played great, and I hope he gets some minutes this weekend in St. Louis.
Yeah, so we'll talk about it more later in the show, because I think a couple people had questions about it. But just as far as the principle of lining up another rotated lineup like this, I'm fine with it, and I think that's how you should handle it. The other thing I would say about that is that you might be able to approach it differently if you've been in good form in the league and you're way up on the table and you can afford to drop league points. The Seattle Sounders, I'm sad to report, do not have that luxury right now. You have to be prioritizing taking points in all your league games right now. So I'm pretty sure that factors into how Schmetz thinks about it. If they were higher up on the table and had some cushion to work with, maybe he does put out a stronger lineup for this game. But you need to be going all out to win this St. Louis game, and as such, you just could not field your first choice 11 in this game. And on top of that, maybe we're sickos for it, but I think we both like watching the novelty lineups. I think it's entertaining, and outside of the entertainment value, they're good data points for these young guys and players that we don't get to see as often. talk about my thoughts from the first half. I thought it started off pretty well in that Seattle was on top of Phoenix. Like I said, I thought it very much looked like there was a quality disparity between the two sides. Seattle was generating the better chances, had the better sequences of play, but much like the first team regulars for the Seattle Sounders at many times this season, they couldn't quite find a goal, and then just had a really bad sequence to end the first half. And this one drove me nuts, Noah. The whole sequence. First of all, unfortunately, the Moose agenda has taken a hit. It started when he missed a breakaway, which would be one thing, but when he could have just laid it off to Georgie.
Oh yeah,
wide open, right there, plenty of time and space to both see him and hit the pass. It's an easy goal. Phoenix Rising was basically saying, do you guys want the first goal of the game?
Yeah.
Here you go. You can have it. Christian Roldan hits a perfect through ball to Moose, who's all alone with Georgie right there for an easy tap in. And instead, he decides to try and wrap a shot around the guy.
The keeper was coming at him.
While the keeper was coming at him. And he ended up, like, even if you're going to take the shot in that situation, like, you would think it would have been harder for him to save, but it ended up being like a relatively easy save.
You just shot it right at him.
Shot it right at him when you had Georgie right there. I mean, that ball needs to be laid off.
Yeah.
It needs to be laid off every single time. 10 times out of 10. I don't know if he didn't see him or just trusted himself more in that situation than he did to try and lay it off. But either way, I mean, it's just that's not a smart play from your forward. Like that's you're giving a goal away. That is an easy goal. That it just can't that can't happen.
Yeah, I was literally screaming. I'm sure everyone around me was so incredibly annoyed. I was screaming, pass, lay it off, because it was such a good play.
Oh, the pass from Christian
yeah. And it like just drew all of the attention because the way that it was like the perfect counterattack, especially against a USL side who's probably not going to have the tactical capability to defend something like that. Just what a ball. Moose is there. He's already pulling the keeper out towards him. It's like, how do you not have the wherewithal and the knowledge to just turn and pass the ball?
Yeah.
It to me, what it looked like was a striker who has been begging for form, has been begging for like literally any kind of goal. And he wanted one because he needed to feel like he could do that. And it cost him an assist.
Yeah, and I think the really unfortunate thing too is that it cost us a Georgie goal, which that would have been another great storyline. But so yeah, you had that play where Moose bungles the breakaway, and then on the other end you have Danny Leyva with just super unnecessary challenge to concede the PK that Phoenix converted. Like not all PKs are created equal. Sometimes as the defender in that situation, you're between a rock and a hard place and you don't really have that many good options, and you have to make a challenge just to in a last ditch attempt to try and save a goal. But in this case, it felt like Seattle had the defenders there to snuff out whatever opportunity might have arisen from that sequence. And there was like, what is to be gained from that challenge? Yeah, maybe you get the ball off him. That's the positive outcome. The negative outcome is what happened, which is that he takes him down for a foul in the box and you concede a penalty. So just not good risk-reward analysis right there. Out of the options of making that challenge or not making that challenge, he should have not made that challenge.
Yeah, I think that's probably the correct take. It literally reminded me of when I'd be playing FIFA online against like people who that's all they did.
You're just mashing X.
And I'm just mashing X because it's like I'm so pissed off. It was the weirdest thing. Like I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, this is great. Nuhu is actually back in position, and you also have a center back. You have another center back. It's kind of like a 2-on-3 position, and then I just see Danny Leyva hit the sprint button and directly clean this dude out at the top of the box, and I was just like, what are you doing? What was the point of that?
Yeah.
I don't understand what his thought process was.
Now that you mentioned Nuhu, I didn't write this on the outline, but I just thought of it. I thought it was funny how like his antics against the USL side actually kind of work. Like, remember the play where he like spun through 3 guys and he looks just like a world-class play. He tries that in MLS, and I don't know if I've ever seen it work, but like he can do it in this context against the USL team, and it actually did work.
Yeah,
and I thought he knew who held it down this game. Like,
absolutely.
He didn't do anything crazy. So
no, I actually, and I have to note this because post game, me and Nuhu linked, 2 legends linked. We dapped it up. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we're boys now.
Okay,
so
that is good to know.
The agenda is on the up, folks.
Okay. So John Bell got hurt, I believe, around that time. It might have been a little later, but I wanted to drop that in there. Best wishes to John Bell. John Bell's been playing well. Like, he's finally started to get some minutes in the last few weeks here, and I got nothing negative to say about the play of John Bell. So hope he heals up. And that was unfortunate to see him go out right there because he's a guy who's been getting his opportunity and doing quite well with it. But he came out with what I believe is a hamstring injury. So he got replaced by Jackson Reagan.
Sounder.
But here's where I wanted to debut a new segment, Noah. This is a new segment, and that I think we're going to keep on the show moving forward because I like the concept of it. It's called Agenda Check. We're gonna go through all the agendas and update the status of them and see where they stand after the most recent game. Okay.
Yeah.
So for this week's inaugural agenda check, we've got Moose, Georgie, Paul Rothrock, Andy T, and a new entry, Kalani Kossa-Rienzi, who maybe we should save that one for when we break down the goal. Let's do that. Let's do Moose, Georgie, Paul Rothrock, Andy T agenda checks. Starting with Moose. I mean, the Moose agenda took a hit.
Yeah,
it took a hit. This was the worst Moose game of the season. Because I mean, I think I had it for later on in the game, but he missed another breakaway late in the game.
Yep,
late in the game, and. So you have that combined. I mean, the one that he didn't lay off to Georgie just drives me nuts. Like, I'm sorry that it's just when you have a goal challenged team like this, you gotta hit your layups. And when you have an opportunity for a layup and you just bungle it away like that for no reason, it's just a really bad play. And then missing another breakaway. So Moose has done well at times this season. He's one of the only players on the team that scored a goal towards the beginning of the season in the Quakes game. And I think we both liked what we've seen from him at times. But the agenda has undeniably taken a hit. This was a rough one for him.
Yeah. Well, people were saying he's A-Bear level, but listen, I got to say, we got to cool it down. I think if we're doing thermometer level of agenda...
One day A-Bear.
Yeah, it's like I don't think he's there yet, but
no. I'm not going to entirely write him off as a player based off one game. Like, every player has an off game or a bad game, but if we're talking about just purely the status of the agenda, a game like this diminishes it. It does. There's no getting around that.
Yeah. He's not looking good.
What about the Georgie agenda? I'll let you cook on that one.
Man, the Georgie agenda. This one's an interesting one because I feel like there's a lot of people who are hesitant to dive in and fully support the Georgie agenda. Me personally, I was one of those people.
A lot of people are really into it, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of a polarizing agenda.
Yeah, I think, funny enough, I think that it's a more nuanced Nuhu agenda type deal where like he has a lot of flash as well. He is really talented at certain things, but then is also like he's got that rough side of someone who clearly doesn't have as many MLS minutes as another winger. But I will say, the Georgie agenda continues to rise. I don't think you can deny that.
Yeah, I don't know if it skyrocketed this game, but he definitely didn't diminish his stock. I mean, my take on Georgie is pretty much the same as it has been, which is, okay, like I've kind of alluded to this before, but I think this is sort of my final conclusion on the Georgie agenda, which is that he pretty much offers you functionally the same thing as Leo Chu right now, which is exciting individual moments and good individual plays, but without the end product. But the thing is, it's a way more exciting agenda because we haven't seen him play, and we don't know if he gets more minutes. Maybe that end product does come to fruition. Whereas with Leo Chu, we've watched so much of him at this point, we kind of know what it is. It's a known commodity. Any thought that he's going to ascend into this prolific or dominant MLS player, I don't think many people expect that from Leo Chu right now. Georgie, I don't think many people necessarily expect that type of ceiling, but it's just exciting to have a player who has these fun individual plays and who's clearly very gifted, both on the ball and just has and a lot with his pace and everything. So I agree. I think the Georgie agenda is going strong after this. He didn't end up getting on the score sheet, but there was still enough of those exciting moments to where it lives on.
Yeah, I dig it. I hope he continues, and I do hope that he sees more MLS minutes as well. I mean, especially as literally half the team is dead or without a hamstring. We might as well let him play, let him cook. I think he could be. I mean, I know he's not going to play in St. Louis, but I feel like he could have been a pretty good starter in St. Louis.
Yeah, I'm down with it. Paul Rothrock agenda for me is pretty much unchanged status, I would say. But I don't know. I think in general, I'm not going to say it's taken like a big hit or his stock is way down or anything like that. But I would say if I had to tab it with anything, it would be a slight hit, just because for me, at least, the Paul Rothrock agenda is all about scoring goals, and he hasn't scored a goal in the last couple of times that he's been out there, which that doesn't necessarily mean that he's playing bad. You know, I've been pretty firm on my stance that banking on Paul Rothrock to carry the goal scoring load for your MLS team is not necessarily the first thing that you should want. But for me, the Paul Rothrock agenda hedges on the fact that there's been these times where it seems like he's the only guy on the team that can score. So if he's not scoring, the agenda takes a slight hit, but not a huge hit, because I think he's still playing well and contributing to the team. He's not doing anything bad. He just, for him to skyrocket the agenda back into the stratosphere where it once was, and perhaps beyond that, he's got to be bamming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, it's like when a major company has an earnings call and they were just like slightly below projections, and then their stock takes a tiny dip.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn. But then inevitably they rebound once they find their form again. I think that's Paul Rothrock. And I don't really think that we can bam on him too hard for not finding his goal scoring form when he's not playing the 9, and he's playing way more of a like support role, especially on these Open Cup teams. Like, I know he gets forward, but I don't know if he even had a shot on goal in this last match. He was really just more playing a support position, in a position that's going to get back and defend as well, which I got to be honest, like having a player like that who's versatile, who can get back and defend, that's pretty damn good.
I definitely think he's a more than credible MLS player at this point. Like, yeah. I've seen enough between the goal scoring and just how he plays the game that I think he's definitely a useful player at this level, which that was unknown when he got back to the organization. You know, he was balling out in MLS Next Pro for Toronto FC.
He scored 2 goals at actual Toronto as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the Paul Rothrock agenda lives on for the time being. Andy T agenda, I think I don't think the Andy T agenda stock is necessarily skyrocketed, but I think that agenda is as strong as ever.
Yeah.
He had the one really, really nice save early, which that could have been a goal. One of those game-changing saves that we talk about that you need from an MLS number 1. He made one of those, and then other than that, Phoenix Rising, they weren't cooking with all that much gas. He didn't get tested too much, but I think with that save and Phoenix's only goal being on a penalty, the Andy T agenda is doing just fine.
Yeah, I think if he would have saved that penalty, he would have hit all-time record agenda peak.
He would have surpassed the Paul Rothrock agenda at its peak.
Yeah,
which that's not easy to do.
I think we probably both would have been screaming, "Start him over Fry immediately." But no, I think he is still which, like, I gotta say, what a goalkeeping room we have. Like, Tommy Dutra might be the greatest goalkeeping coach of all time.
Like, there's been a lot of debate. We've talked about it on this show of, should Andy T be starting over Stephen Fry? But like, the way I look at it is it's just 2 number 1s. I mean, I know Fry's had a couple of rough moments this year, but I think, I mean, for me, I don't really consider goalkeeping, even with the couple of mistakes that Fry has made, or goals that he probably could have saved. Goalkeeping is not in like the top 25 issues that the squad has this year. And so I think it's a credit to both Steph and Andy T that it's a situation where you have two guys you can start there with equal confidence. I know there's a little bit of an anti-Steph or like Steph is washed agenda out there a little bit, and like that has fueled a lot of the Andy T movement, like the people that are really big into the Andy T agenda. But like I said, I consider it 2-1s.
Yeah, 1A, 1B situation for sure, I think.
But Andy T, man, like he is, he's making some nice saves. He looks like an MLS 1.
Which is honestly the best possible scenario for this club. Like, you have your veteran starting keeper playing a lot of minutes, being your main starter, but also Andy T has seen a lot of MLS minutes and minutes in Open Cup. Like, you really couldn't ask for a better position going into the next contract year where Steph's out of contract and you just re-signed Andy T as clearly your number one.
Yeah, good point. We do have to talk about the Kalani Kossa-Rienzi agenda, but we're going to wait until we break down the goal, and then we'll talk about that agenda. So that'll do it for the first ever agenda check. That was good. We'll bring that segment back every week as is necessary. You know, like a lot of the agendas are pertaining to guys who don't necessarily play as much. That's why it's an agenda, because your agenda is basically like, this guy is good and should play more.
Yeah.
So I don't know if during the normal week we'll have enough agendas for a full agenda check, but anytime it's relevant, we're going to check on the status of the agendas.
Could be a monthly thing.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Seattle got their first goal of the game, trailing 1-0 in the 68th minute after, correct me if I'm wrong, Noah, but Alex Roldan won the PK, correct? That he then converted. I'm pretty sure it was him who was taking a shot from outside the box, and the Phoenix defender had his arm out. So that was a stone cold penalty, and it was well won. And I think it was during a phase of the game where Seattle was controlling the game and generating the better chances, much like they were early in the first half. So I think it was a well-earned penalty. But it was funny. I don't know if you had the same reaction, but after they won the penalty, I was sitting there like, okay, who is out there? Who's out there? That's the obvious person to take this. Like, I don't really know. Like, you have in your attacking group, you had Moose out there at that point. If I had to guess, I would have said probably him because he's the striker.
He missed his in the last Open Cup.
Oh, okay. So you're saying he just wasn't allowed to take it.
That's what I would do personally. Yeah.
I like, if you had told me to guess in that moment, I would have guessed either the striker or, one of the wingers or something. But you got Georgie out there. Like, I don't think Paul Rothrock would take. So I'm like going through the list in my mind, who's going to take this penalty, and then Alex steps up to take it, and I'm like, all right. I mean, that makes sense. He's one of the most senior guys on the field. Lord knows you're not going to have Nuhu take it.
Honestly.
So, I mean, that could have been sick.
That could have been sick as hell.
But I thought it made sense that Alex ended up stepping up, and he drilled it. The goalkeeper actually guessed the right way, but he placed it well enough where he couldn't stop it. So that makes it 1-1, and it stayed that way until the 88th. And I mean, this is going to be the most fun thing to talk about from this week. Game winner in the 88th minute from Kalani Kossa-Rienzi. One of my favorite goals of the season so far.
Yeah.
This was such a sick goal. Like his dancing around in the box. Like there are defenders trying to get that ball off him, and he's just cooking him, dancing and weaving. Top bins on that finish. You cannot finish it any better.
While falling backward too.
Yeah, exactly. Like fade away after evading like three guys in the box, just dribbling around. I mean, I'll tell you what, Noah, I saw that and I said, holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I said was, who was that guy? And then I'm looking and they're yelling his name. And then I think the highlight of the night, obviously, was the Oba flip that he did in celebration. He did an Oba flip that was one of the better Oba flips I've ever seen. He got way up there.
He was so up there.
And
in the feet drag behind it. Oh, it was nasty.
It was just such a funny moment because it took me probably 30 seconds after he scored it to fully figure out who he was because I didn't see his number or anything. My feed was a little grainy. I'm squinting and then the commentator's saying his name. I'm like, oh, okay, it's Kossa-Rienzi. But I haven't really watched him play for Defiance this year, and I also I don't follow college soccer, so but I do know that he was one of the better players for UW over the last 3 or 4 years, which that can mean anything as it pertains to your stock as a pro. Christian Roldan was a great player for UW, and he became an elite MLS player.
Jordan Morris.
Jordan Morris, Stanford. But
Yeah.
I mean, I look at him a little differently because he was brought up homegrown in the academy. He's not like a conventional college soccer player. But, Dylan Tevez was one of the best players on UW. He's been an MLS backup. So you have no clue how they're going to work out. It's all 50-50. So when they drafted him, I was like, all right, they got another one. They basically what the Sounders do in the super draft every year is just draft the best UW player.
Yeah. So it's a good bit.
It worked really well with Christian. I mean, that was like a club altering draft pick. So, I didn't watch any Huskies games or anything like that when Kalani Kossa-Rienzi was on the team. And it's also, like I said, it's just pretty randomized if that's going to hit or not. But I got to tell you, seeing him step up in that moment for the game winner to make that play, he's got my attention.
Yeah.
He has got my attention with that. I mean, and then putting on the show with the Oba flip, right after, I'm like,
did you see that photo? The photo they posted?
Oh my God,
that's as a photo editor, as someone who sees, that is probably one of the best MLS photos I've seen all season. Just incredible.
It might be one of my favorite Sounders photos.
Yeah.
He is so high up there. He got up higher than Oba gets up there.
Yeah.
So he's clearly a freak athlete. And he's clearly got a lot of technical ability, because the other thing I'll say is that was not the only good play that he looked good overall
on the
ball.
I
was going to note it before he even scored that goal on the ball. Just his technical ability seems very, very good, and he's clearly doing well enough with Defiance to merit this look with the first team. And Schmetz actually said, I don't know if you saw this quote, Noah, but he said he was so impressed that he's taking him to St. Louis.
Yeah,
he said, get on the plane, you're coming, and we're going to maybe play you in this game. So we might get to see more of them, which would be cool. So as far as the agenda goes, I mean, the Kalani Kossa-Rienzi agenda, probably the hottest agenda of the week after that. That was a sick goal.
I got to say, there's been a lot of people, well, there's not been a lot of people, but there's been a few people who have been really high on him on the upside, saying this is the next Christian Roldan. This is like blueprint, but better. His on the ball ability is just ridiculous. The whole game he was dominating when he was on the ball, just dribbling through people, making great plays and passes. I know he was one of the first players cut from training camp. He almost made the first team. So I don't know. Just what a player. I don't know.
It did look like Christian sometimes at points. I could see that. Just that whole play on the goal between his work in the box and the finish and then the flip, it's almost a little more physically dynamic than you see from Christian. So I mean, I want to caution this by, we're not saying that he's Christian Roldan 2.0 or better than Christian Roldan, but he showed some very intriguing upside to where if you see him over a larger sample and he keeps playing like that, you might be onto something with this.
Let me just note to you, foot mob rating, however you may take this into consideration, he had an 8.7. That is nasty work. He had a goal. And of his passing, he went 41 of 48, 70 touches, and that's ridiculous. 6 passes in the final third. What a game.
Yeah, man of the match for sure. And just a really interesting and unexpected storyline to come out of this. I think it speaks to another point, which is that's why you give young players opportunities in games like this. That's why it's a good idea, because you give them an opportunity and a platform to showcase stuff like that. And that's how you find out which ones are the ones that can hit an MLS and help you. If you don't give them minutes and you don't give them opportunities when you have a chance to, you might not necessarily get the data you need to find stuff out like that. If he's not on the field right there, he can't make that play. Schmetz doesn't have the knowledge from that to know to bring him to St. Louis and give him more minutes. So that goes back to why I think it's actually a good thing to be using these Open Cup games, especially the early ones, to give players like that a chance and see what they can do. So with that win, 2-1 on that game winner, the Sounders are moving on to the quarterfinals where they're going to take on a third straight USL Championship club, this time Sac Republic at Sac Republic.
At Sac Republic,
on the road. So they're going to have to go on the road to get through to the semis. Sac Republic, don't know that much about them, but I do know that the Sounders played them in the Open Cup a couple years ago and lost on the road. So definitely, they actually also made the Open Cup final a couple years ago as well. They made a run all the way to the final, and they played at Orlando City SC, and I wanted them to win that so bad. If a USL team ever won the Open Cup, I mean, okay, I know they did, and like I dished this take one time and someone was like, well, one did in 1990 whatever. If in the modern era a USL team won the US Open Cup, that would be one of the greatest days of my life.
Yeah,
especially if they beat an MLS team. It's funny, like when it comes to CONCACAF Champions Cup, I'm kind of the mind that I root for most of the MLS teams. Like I'm rooting for the Crew. I want the gap with Liga MX closed. I want that storyline done, and I want the league to grow and thrive and succeed. I think winning Champions Cup helps that. So I definitely, even if it's not Seattle involved, if there's an MLS team, maybe a couple that I wouldn't, but for the most part, if there's an MLS team in Champions Cup making a run, I'm going to root for them. Open Cup, it's the opposite. I want the USL teams to win so bad. Like when the Seattle's lost to a couple USL teams in the Open Cup in the last couple years, and I'm like down with it. Like, and that goes for every MLS team though. Like if you're playing a USL team in the Open Cup, I just want you to lose just because I love the underdog stuff. Like one of the coolest things about soccer is the lower division upsets that you see. Sometimes there's nothing quite like it. I mean, as a New Mexico United fan, which I was going to mention as well, because they're still in the U.S. Open Cup, but they beat FC Dallas in the Open Cup a couple years ago, and they beat Real Salt Lake this year. And it's so euphoric to be a fan of one of those teams that scores one of those higher division upsets. Like, even if they're rotated, like Real Salt Lake was probably super rotated for that. I don't care. Get them out. Get them out. So
that's the magic of the cup. Like
exactly.
Fuck Leagues Cup. We are Open Cup freaks here. I do have to say, this Open Cup match is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fixtures away. So a lot could change with this lineup.
So
a
international
lot could change.
break. Correct. Yeah. So the quarterfinals aren't taking place until July, correct? Because
July
of the international
10th.
break. So there's going to be like a 45-plus day break between now and Seattle's next Open Cup game, which I kind of like that, honestly. It gives you something to look forward to down the line, and also alleviate some of the fixture congestion that they've been dealing with for the time being. And I kind of like just having that in the bank. Okay, there's more Open Cup to look forward to, and also. The last few years, Seattle hasn't really made it very far. They haven't made it this far in the Open Cup in a long time. They won the Open Cup my first year on the beat, which was 2014. Pretty much ever since then, it's been a situation where they play rotated lineups in the early rounds, and then they get bounced. And I think that's kind of where some of the anxiety comes from why aren't they fielding stronger lineups, is we've seen the movie before, like when they played Sac Republic a few years ago and they lost, where they play a rotated lineup against a lower division team and they lose for it. So
what do you think about because now we've kind of seen teams move through the cycle. How do you feel about MLS playing more next pro teams than they are real teams? Because I think what it has led to is
a whole can of worms.
No, I know it's a whole can of worms, but what I think it has led to is more USL teams having the opportunity to go farther in the cup.
That is one byproduct certainly. I mean, just using the New Mexico United example again, because, sorry, folks, I'm a religious, diehard New Mexico United fan. I care more about them than I care about the Sounders. It's just how it is. But I did think about that because New Mexico United got to play New York City FC 2 from MLS Next Pro in their second Open Cup game. And I was like, well, we're going to win this.
Yeah.
And we bammed on them 3-0. It was like a bunch of 17 to 19-year-olds against our USL squad that has, guys who've been playing pro ball for 5-6 years. And it just wasn't really even a game. So I don't necessarily know if that's a good dynamic because you have Next Pro teams in an overmatched situation. But, I think that's good experience for the Next Pro kids as well. So I know there's a lot of people who were very upset that MLS teams were talking about, or MLS was talking about scaling back their presence in the Open Cup and making it more of a developmental tournament. I don't know about all that, but I think you're right that USL squads do have more of a chance to make it far, and that's been a boon for me as a New Mexico United supporter.
There's always a silver lining somewhere, right, Ari?
Yeah, exactly. I did want to mention that New Mexico United has LAFC next, which I'm not very happy about that. The idea of Dennis Bouanga bearing down on my USL boys is quite upsetting, and I don't even know if I want to watch. I'm going to watch it, but I don't think it's going to end particularly well.
But if it does, then you get to play the Sounders.
If New Mexico United beats LAFC and then plays the Sounders,
and they'll play here,
yeah, and they play here, I don't really even know what I would do. That would be the greatest day of my life. It would be the greatest day of my life to take down LAFC and then have Seattle and New Mexico United playing in the Open Cup. I don't think it gets any better than that. To be clear, I would be rooting for New Mexico United without even having to think about it. Some people might not like that. I'm just telling you, I have no problem saying that. New Mexico United's my number one sports team out of any sport. So it's where I'm from, man. It's I know a lot of people who listen to us, and you, Noah, have the hometown bond with the Sounders. You know how unbreakable that hometown bond is. That's my hometown.
Absolutely.
So I love that team. Let's get into questions, Noah. Let's see what the people had to say this week. There were some good ones that got submitted. As always, thanks to everyone who submitted. And sorry we can't get to every single one of them every week, but we always get some good content out of these. So yeah, let's dive in.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we hit on it a little bit, but let's swing it on back to those Schmetzer comments about, quote, we'll have more of a presence on the bench, even starters, maybe a couple of starters that will surprise some people, talking about the lineup for this U.S. Open Cup match. So is Schmetzer just lying, or was this the right call, or what did you take of his comments?
I definitely, when I saw that quote initially, I expected a lineup that had a lot more starters than this. Like we mentioned, it was Christian and Nuhu, and that was it. So I guess on the technicality of that was more than the last lineup.
Right.
He delivered on that sentiment in that sense. But I do think that I put stock in him saying that now they're at the point in the tournament where he's going to have to start playing stronger and stronger lineups, starting with this next game. Because the reality is you are now within striking distance of a trophy in a season where your league season is not going that well. You don't really know how many chances you're going to get at a trophy. This team does not look like it's particularly set up to make a Leagues Cup run right now. Doesn't look particularly set up to make a playoff run right now. That could change, but right now you're actually decently close to the Open Cup final. So I think this is the point, and I think Schmetz understands this, that you should start going for it. And I think that my prediction would be that the lineup for the Sac Republic game is going to be a pretty strong one. I would say probably something in between what we saw against Phoenix and what you would see in a typical first choice MLS 11.
Yeah, I would agree. I hope that we see some of those young guys still playing on there. I love the cup keeper attitude. Keep Andy T in goal. But yeah, I mean, shoot, toss Jordan Morris out there, toss a bunch of other starters. I'd love to see that, but We're cooking.
Before we get to the next question, I actually wanted to address a question real quick that someone asked me before the show. And it's completely irrelevant to the Open Cup or the game that we've been talking about. But just for people who might listen to the show who might not understand, someone asked me what the background is behind why I call Sporting Kansas City the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, which I call them that every time that I refer to them on every reference. So I think most Sounders diehards and people who listen to this show know that reference, but just in case anyone doesn't, and including the person who asked me the question, I'll just give the backstory real quick. The Club of Professional Wrestling Enthusiasts is a reference to the famous Sounders game from a couple years ago where Sporting Kansas City goalkeeper Tim Melia chokeslammed Christian Roldan and didn't get a red card for it, and then Sporting Kansas City won the game. And then the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson tweeted about it, and the league account then tweeted at The Rock, and then the discourse absolutely went fully off the rails, and I admittedly was right in the middle of that. This was back at a point in my life where I was a lot more committed to the discourse than I am now. The last couple years, I tend to stay out of it a little more, but at that point, my mind was not wired like that at all. And that play, I mean, it really, do you remember how polarizing the reaction was?
Yes.
Seattle fans were pissed because one of their players was subject to a dangerous play that should have drawn a red card and didn't. And then Sporting Kansas City fans were hyped about it because their player didn't get a red card and then they won the game.
Yeah.
They thought that was the most awesome thing.
Which, like, I respect them for that.
Which I can respect that maybe in principle, but not necessarily with the way that they expressed those sentiments. And also, the whole thing with The Rock was just crazy.
That was worse than this.
But so, like, the Sporting Kansas City fan reaction was pretty over the top. A few of them came after me, but then their players in their next game scored a goal. I don't know if you remember this. They scored a goal and then did like a wrestling celebration in Tim Melia's honor. So that ratcheted up all the discourse again. Anyway, it was just a whole big thing. And ever since then, I've dubbed them the Club of Professional Wrestling Enthusiasts.
Good bit.
Yeah.
But this concludes That's a Bit hour. Was that something? Anyway, let's get to another question before I make a fool of myself here. Regardless of roster turnover or new signings, I just want Georgie, KKR, and Hawkins to be competitive for starting minutes in 2025. Ari, do you agree with that take? And who else would you like to see competing for minutes in 2025?
Read the list again.
We have Georgie, Kossa-Rienzi, and Hawkins.
Yeah, I would honestly agree with that list, but only add Paul Rothrock. But in all seriousness, like, you know, we were talking on the last show about how Obed Vargas was kind of the first academy kid that seems like he's like might be fully breaking out in a while. And you got to just spam as many of them as possible towards the first team and hope you can get as many impact players as like a Philly Union or an FC Dallas have out of their academies in the last few years. And that stuff can change your club, man. It really can. It's I always kind of call it like a hack of the salary cap, you know? If you get these homegrowns and they become impact players, it strengthens your team so much. And this last generation, you know, they're still working their way in, but multiple of them haven't hit in necessarily the way that you would like to ultimately see. And so that group that you named, I think that's a great group to hope that hope do hit. I know Georgie's not technically a academy homegrown, but he's still a young player where if he hits, that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see all of those players. Yeah, let's get some more youth minutes in there. I mean, I think that we've all agreed that the veterans on this team this season have looked less than acceptable. Moving on here to, I think, what was the hottest take in your entire mentions. So I wanted to bring this one up.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen it.
This comes from Charlemagne. No one cares about the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. I'm not saying literally no one, because I've never missed one that I could watch. But the MLS needs to grow a pair and drop out.
That is a pretty hot take. I don't know. Maybe this is a hot take too, but I'm kind of fine with how it is as far as MLS teams partaking in it, but most of them treating it as a platform for younger players to get minutes and getting a look at, maybe second string players that they want to see more of and earn more roles. Like that's sort of how MLS teams have been treating this tournament for years. And I personally, I know a lot of people don't agree, but I personally think that the subplots of the young guys and the academy kids getting a chance to make their mark and make their case for more minutes and all that in a tournament like this, I think that's fun and I think it's entertaining.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. And I will say the fact that it's not of value is quite silly because you do get a CCC berth if you win this.
And a lot of money.
And $300K. So, I'm sorry, but the fact that you say it's not worth it, well, I disagree. I think that if you really want to be a competitive squad, this team is looking to set themselves up for success in the next 2 years. If you can get a berth this year into CCC and then build on that momentum going out and shopping for an insane 2 new DPs potentially, man, that's exactly what would turn the next year around.
There's tons of history to this tournament too. It's the oldest soccer tournament in the country, and Seattle's got a proud history in it of its own. I mean, they've won this tournament 4 times. The Open, people forget, but the Open Cup was originally how the Sounders kind of made their mark in the league when they first got into the league. They weren't making runs at MLS Cup every year, but they took the Open Cup very seriously. They won it 4 times. And that's
3 in a row.
3 in a row. That's a proud thing for the organization.
Yeah, that's kind of all I had for questions. We answered a lot of them in our agenda section, so I thought we can move from there.
Got it. Well, thank you to everyone again for blowing up my mentions and submitting questions. And sorry if we didn't get to them, but like I always say. Those crowdsourcing are as much about just like checking the pulse of the streets and getting the discourse flowing as much as anything. And we try to hit as many as we can. Let's talk about St. Louis City real quick because that is who the Sounders play next at City Park on Saturday. St. Louis City, no, unfortunately, Lobbing Scorchers is not very popular among the St. Louis City fan base.
Sanctioned.
If anyone remembers from last year, we put them on Fraud Watch, which I like. At the time, I did not think that would be anything controversial at all. I thought we might have been clowning on them a little bit, but I think the basic sentiment of what we were saying was grounded in logic and it made sense, which is that, I mean, they were a team last year that had this very magical expansion season. I can't remember if they actually ended up breaking. No, I think they fell 1 short of LAFC's record for an expansion team, which is a great season. But I don't know. I watched them a lot this season. Like I watch a ton of the league every week. And so I got a pretty good feel for their team, and they felt like a team that was outperform, like they were getting results that were outperforming how they were actually playing, like not just from looking at the underlying numbers, but from the eye test too. It seemed like a team that I swear last year they were just blessed with something.
Yeah.
Like they would win these games that they kind of had no business winning and just crazily pulling it out. And it was, I mean, I don't really even mean to take away from it. Like it was phenomenal for their fan base to get that experience. And I was happy for the new fans of that team to get to experience that, because we've seen teams like Minnesota United and FC Cincinnati come into the league and they just get their doors blown off every single week. And it's a really rough adjustment, like coming into the league. So I actually enjoyed watching from afar how a fan base of a new MLS expansion team got to be competitive and fun to watch and win games right away. And they have a really awesome stadium. So, I mean, all credit to them for that. But like the reality is the quality of their team was not as good as their point total. Was Fraud Watch a harsh term?
No.
No,
No.
I don't think so. I think that was the correct term. And then it turned out to be validated because they lost to Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, in the playoffs immediately.
Yeah.
And we were validated. So,
Which I will say, I think they also did get the short end of the stick because Sporting were on the hottest run I think I've ever seen a team go on.
yeah,
But
it was up there. I forgot about how hot they got.
because ending
last
that
year.
season, I think they went undefeated in like 10 or 12.
So, no, you're right. They did get unlucky in that sense. But either way, I think the fraud watch was justified. Needless to say, somehow, I don't know why St. Louis City fans were listening to this show, but apparently they were. They wrote us some negative reviews, which we got negative reviews from two fan bases so far. St. Louis, which they were mad about Fraud Watch, which, okay. And then LAFC, which, to be fair, we did record an entire 1 hour and 20-minute episode. I think it was episode 3, where we basically relentlessly clowned on them the entire time for
Correct.
choking away Champions Cup. So, I don't necessarily begrudge LAFC fans writing us negative reviews. But anyway, the point is, St. Louis City SC has not been as good this year. Once again, Fraud Watch seems to have been validated. I mean, I think they have struggled with a lot of injuries. I know Joao Klaus was hurt at one point, but even when he wasn't hurt, he wasn't banging in goals at the same clip that he was last year. They still have Roman Berkey, who was, I think, I don't know what the underlying said, but to my eye at least, he was the best goalkeeper in the league last year. And that signing for them, a lot of people questioned Lutz, the man Lutz. They questioned Lutz for that signing. He had a quote about how he doesn't have a designated player, he has a designated team, and then he signed a goalkeeper to a DP contract, and everyone was like, Lutz, that's not how you should. And he was like, this is designated team. And then then they went out and got first in the West and almost broke LAFC's expansion team record. And everyone was like, wow, is Lutz just a genius that we
DT,
don't
bro.
understand? He built the DT. But it hasn't panned out as well for them this year. And I think a lot of that is due to injuries, but I think some degree of it at least is a little bit of regression to the mean, sort of like we saw with Austin FC last year. Right now, St. Louis and Seattle are right next to each other on the table. 9th and 10th place. St. Louis is in 9th. Seattle's in 10th. St. Louis is at 1.23 points per game, -1 goal differential, 3-3-7 record. So all that's to say, they're not the high-flying first place all season, Shield contending for a while type side that they were last year. You can call it fraud watch, you can call it regression, you can call it whatever. Point is, a result in this game is attainable for Seattle with this St. Louis team as currently constituted. That's not to say that they don't have weapons. I mean, Joao Klaus is back healthy, and he scored a couple goals in the last few weeks. Edward Lowen is their other DP, very talented player. And then Roman Berkey, he's sick. I won't
he's
lie.
pretty sick.
Like, he makes some saves where I'm like, okay, all right, you're pretty good.
But for a DP slot,
right, and that's the question about it. But I think if you look at last year, like, it actually that was sort of why they were overperforming.
True.
That's why they were able to do that, is because they had this insane goalkeeper that saved them so many points.
Yeah.
And this year their offense has kind of underperformed, and your goalkeeper can only do so much. And that formula has not worked as well this year. But that I think that was kind of maybe what Lutz was thinking, and the funny thing is that it just actually worked last year. And I remember thinking that was a funny storyline because of how he got made fun of a lot for designated team. I mean, I made fun of him for that.
Yeah.
I was one of the people who made fun of him for that quote. I still think it's one of my favorite quotes of all time. Designated team, but either way, Seattle, with the players that they have rested from rotating in this Open Cup game, I mean, I expect locked and loaded, fully first choice 11, and like I said, a result is attainable in this game. Will they get one? I mean, road trip into the Midwest with a team that struggles to score multiple goals in any MLS game. This Noah feels like it could be a 0-0-1-1 type situation. And if Seattle gets shut out, though, they're probably going to lose the game because I don't expect them to shut out St. Louis with St. Louis playing at home with their home crowd and everything. So if Seattle wants a result in this game, I think you're looking at 1-1 or 2-2.
Yeah.
Not 0-0.
I'm seeing it as it's either going to go one of two ways, which is funny enough. Is like a total cop out, but I think they either have a Montreal Impact type game where like they just blow the doors off of them for no reason, find some kind of form, or they just absolutely have a game like they did against the Whitecaps where they lose it late in the game or concede, and it's just like maybe they take a point home, maybe they don't, but it's all going to depend on, in my opinion, how many minutes Pedro de la Vega plays.
Yeah, good point. We hadn't talked about that, but I'm hoping to see more of him in this game, and I think that's a pretty big X factor. You know, in theory, we haven't seen him play enough to say this, but in theory, if he is the type of player that they think he is, he could be a game changer in games like this. He needs to be that type of player. So we'll see how many minutes he gets. I'm hoping that they give him a nice run, like at least the first half, maybe 60 minutes if he's able. You know, don't do anything that's gonna pop his hamstring again. But I just want to see him play, man.
Yeah.
I just want to see him play so bad. So that's a good point because if he is starting in this game, that suddenly makes this game a lot more interesting. If he's not playing or limited to a very short amount of minutes or whatever, like a 30-minute sub cameo or whatever, which would still be nice, then the way I look at it is this is kind of the same team that we've been watching that we can pretty much rightfully expect is probably going to struggle to score goals unless, you know, something could happen like the Philly game where they break out for 3 goals. You never know. But if I had to make a prediction on it, with no De La Vega out there, I would not predict that that's going to happen. And in that case, it's probably going to be kind of a slog. So, yeah, hopefully Pedro gets out there. Like, whatever the outcome is, I just want to know.
Yeah, I want to see him more. He looked so good in that 15 minutes returning.
Yeah. See,
like,
I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
game,
you didn't even
so
see
I don't
it.
have
So,
that,
like, you need your 15 minutes so that you can fully agendize the. Maybe he'll be the next agenda.
Actually,
mention.
That's a good point. Although, yeah, he does. It's a different type of agenda.
Yeah,
but like, yeah, that'll be a good agenda to
We'll
track.
keep watching that. My question to you too is: with Nuhu out, who do you pick as his replacement? Do you go with Cody Baker or do you go Kossa-Rienzi?
Ooh, I go Kossa-Rienzi as the fun option and Cody Baker as the like probable likely option of what would actually happen. But I mean, I will say Schmetz seemed very, very happy and impressed with Kossa-Rienzi. And like I said, like when a coach is that happy with a player, it's about more than the goal. Like Schmetz clearly watched the holistic aspect of that performance and was very pleased with it and might want to give him more minutes. I would be surprised if they start him that fast. I think Cody Baker probably gets the start just because he's been playing in MLS more this year and he's shown that he can do it. But it would definitely be more fun to just plug Kossa-Rienzi in there and just see what happens.
Or do we see Reed Baker Whiting?
Well, he's been coming back from injury and he just hasn't been like Cody Baker's kind of had that spot when RBW was out. But I mean, RBW theoretically might have the highest ceiling out of all these guys. You know, Obed is kind of showing that he's in that discussion for sure. But as far as like what the pundits and the scouts think of it, RBW, as I understand it, is considered a very high ceiling player. So maybe they do want to get him some run. That'll be interesting to track with this starting 11. I would predict that it'll be Cody Baker just because that's what it's been over this last little period of time.
No, good choices. I don't care who plays. I'm stoked. All of those are good options for me personally.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hit a couple news items at the end of the show from around MLS here, and then we can get out of here now. That sound good?
Sounds great.
I just had 2 written down that we talked about before we started recording. Number one is Austin FC have cut Emiliano Rigoni, who was Rigatoni. They brought him in as a designated player, I believe, last year. And that's just noteworthy because he was considered a big signing for them, and it just did not pan out at all. And if you want to look at some of the reason for the Austin FC regression that we've talked about on this show, that's probably a big part of it. I mean, I think, was he the one that was boys with Driussi?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. And that's like part of the reason that they did it. And then it just didn't hit, set them back a little bit. And it's always noteworthy when we see a departure like that, because now they've got an open DP spot. And it's also, they took an L. They took an L on that signing.
They did. It's hard to accept that and move on, but I think they did the right thing. Like, funny enough, I know Wolf was on like the hottest seat in the league somehow and has rode the wave and is just like...
He made it out, yeah.
He made it out.
Fine.
He made it out the mud somehow. And I think that like them being able to ship this dude out of town, that's pretty good deal for Wolf. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. The last one I had was, have you been following this stuff with the Vancouver Whitecaps and Inter Miami? This is a unfortunate series of events. I mean, Inter Miami are headed to Vancouver to play against the Vancouver Whitecaps this weekend, and it was this is a bit that's happened several times this year now, knowing where Inter Miami has a game scheduled and ticket prices get way jacked up. Everyone buys up all those tickets. The game sells out. Everyone's like, hell yeah, we're going to go watch Messi. And then Inter Miami comes out and is like, actually, he tweaked his hamstring and he's not going to play. So everyone has now bought all these really expensive ass tickets and they don't get to watch Messi play. It's happened in multiple cities across MLS now. Vancouver becomes the latest. But the even tougher part about this one is, first of all, Vancouver they're going to set their single game attendance record in this game. They had a whole like street fair.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it was going to be this like big thing. And then not only is Messi not going, but did you see this? Busquets and Jordi Alba aren't going either.
None of the Barca boys in attendance.
Or Suarez isn't going either.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All four of them not going. So they pay. Imagine
Suarez
paying,
might be there. But
I think it might just be okay. Yes, but either way, imagine paying $1,500 to get to watch Bob Taylor.
I mean, I would.
Yeah, I know you would.
We
both would.
Yeah.
But, the people who bought the tickets hoping for Messi, they're not going to be happy about that.
I did see that they're discounting food prices like 50%.
As like a sorry, you paid $1.5K for a ticket.
Yeah. They're like, if you're under 18, you get a kids meal though, so that's pretty sick.
And this was pretty funny too. The Whitecaps, they came out and they with a statement.
Yeah, official club statement.
Club. It had a graphic statement on Messi not playing at our stadium, and
they had to sit in a boardroom and write that.
They had to. Yeah, Axel Schuster, their CEO or whatever, he had to give to their PR staff an apology statement to smooth things. I mean, I feel like you should refund those tickets almost if you have integrity. Like, obviously they never would, but like it's pretty messed up. I don't know.
It's pretty funny. I mean, you're always taking a risk when you buy tickets to see one player in particular, but like, you're not really growing your fan base by like, they do this shit across MLS. The Sounders do it too, where they do dynamic pricing. So based on what they predict is the possible like need or want for tickets, they like fluctuate how much the extra, just buying tickets cost. And so they were like, they were jacking up ticket prices like crazy while also fully opening BC Place for the first time ever, I think.
Yeah.
So funny.
I'm not going to lie. Like, I feel bad for all the people who paid $1.5K for a ticket to see Messi and now are going to be watching Bob T and Noah Allen. But
hey, Kramashi's worth it, bro.
It's incredible content. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pay $1.5K to watch Kramashi, but
and it's like they could have waited a week and they could have seen Scottish Messi play at home for like $15. So God, it's just
the official club statement was so good. All right, that's all I had written down for this show, Noah. I think we're gonna call it a wrap right there for episode 37. Thank you as always to everyone who tunes into the show. We love and appreciate every single one of you. Special thank you to all our paid subs. Someone please be our 20th sub. God,
Please.
I just want to get to 20. Get me to 20 and I'll stop asking.
We're broke. Come on.
In all seriousness, though, I know I say it every week, but we really appreciate everyone who tunes in every single week or multiple times a week. We have fun doing it, and the fact that we're seeing this growth in listenership, it just makes us feel like we should keep doing it, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be right back here after this St. Louis game. That game's on Saturday, so we'll probably have the show out on Sunday.
Sunday or Monday.
Sunday
Probably Monday.
or Monday. Probably Monday. But it'll be out after the game. So we will see you all then.
Make sure to rate.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget.
5 stars. Write the reviews.
YouTube sub.
Tell your friends.
Tell Rigoni.
Tell your parents. Tell Emiliano Rigoni to listen to Lobbing Scorchers. We'll see you next time. Until then, we out.
Peace.